Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeannie Sweeney, and I'm the CEO and the founder of the Above Board Chamber. And I am very excited about today's program, Why Now is the Best Time to Buy or Sell Your Business. We have a phenomenal panel that are seasoned experts in this area that are going to answer lots of questions, and I know they're going to have amazing answers. So I want to thank everyone for joining us because it's going to be exciting. One of the things we do with the Above Board Chamber is tell everybody about a little bit about ourselves. We are in our 10th year and we're very excited about it. We do a lot of things for our members. For instance, if you're a member of the Above Board Chamber, we give you free blog opportunities on our website. You can put your blogs up there. You can put your press release up there. You can put your upcoming events. In today's economy, how crazy it is, people are having a hard time with money. So all those things and all those opportunities with the Above Board Chamber are absolutely free. So we're trying to make sure we give you them so we can get your messages out to the community. We've been doing the webinars since the beginning of the pandemic to let people get the information that they need. When you go out to our meetings, what is most important to us is to make sure that you have the tools to make your business better. So throughout the year, we've been putting information out on our webinars and we've been putting information on our newsletters, and we want to make sure you have all you need to grow your business. Very, very important to us. So we're very excited about it. I just want to let everybody know that's on the program today, everybody that's part of it, will be getting a copy of it once the program is over and it's all fixed up and made pretty for you. So you will get a copy of it so you can watch it later on. People choose to do that sometimes because they're busy at their work. So we don't want them to miss the opportunity to hear our panelists that we're very blessed to have today. One of the people that we have today is a very good friend of mine and somebody that's doing a phenomenal job in our community for our children is Cecilia St. Arnold. She is Executive Director of Blessings in the Backpack, and she is doing some amazing things, Cecilia. I am so excited, and we want to participate and be part of you feeding the children in Southwest Florida. So give us a minute and tell us what you're doing because we want to help you.
Well, thanks, Jeannie. Hello, everybody. I'm Cecilia St. Arnold, Executive Director of Blessings in a Backpack. And for those of you that don't know who we are, we supplement economically disadvantaged children's weekend meals. We supplement that free breakfast and lunch that they get during the school day, and they take that home on the weekend so they come back to school ready to learn on Monday. Presently, we're feeding 5,000 children right here in Southwest Florida every weekend in 23 different schools. Right now, we're running a huge campaign for our oldest program, which is Tice Elementary. We've been feeding all 500 children at that school for over 10 years. But our school investor has always had a 4-day event that raised the funds to feed these children. With the onset of COVID, our event was canceled. So we are now looking at new business strategies as well, that we are not event-driven revenue, but we're looking for new school investors, particularly for Tice Elementary. Every child at that school, which is 500 right now, get a weekend packet of 4 meals to take home every week. And we're able to do that for $115 per child for the entire school year. That breaks down, Jeannie, 4 meals for less than $3 a weekend. Wow. So that is what our big campaign is right now. It's on our website, which is southwestflorida.blessingsinAbackpack.org. And Jeannie, I really appreciate the opportunity of sharing our campaign and our mission to the Above Board Chamber today.
Well, we are blessed to have you as members, but we are blessed as a community as a whole, because what you're doing is really important. Because right now with the virus all over the place, there's so many people, especially in the low income schools, parents do not have jobs because a lot of them are probably working in restaurants and things like that, and they lost their jobs. And the food lines are astronomical in Southwest Florida right now. And to ensure that these children, when they go home on Friday, that they don't have to wait till Monday to get a mail from the school system, that you're taking care of that. And we can't thank you enough because you are a rock star and a hero to me. So thank you, Cecilia. Thank you for being a part of our program today. And thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. It's a blessing to be with you all today as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Cecilia. Now I'm going to go on to our sponsors. In order to put our programs on each month, we try to do a couple a month. We have wonderful sponsors of the Above Board Chamber that are also members. And one is one of my favorite guys in the whole world is Tim from Conditionaire. Tim, you want to tell us a little bit about Conditionaire?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you all virtually, for those of you that I can see. So my name's, again, Tim Dupree, President and CEO of Conditioned Air. We're a full-service residential, light commercial HVAC company, and we serve from Bradenton all the way down south to Marco, and can take care of all of our clients' needs from indoor air quality, routine maintenance, and service and replacements. And the biggest thing that separates Conditioned Air from a lot of other companies in the industry is really our why and how we go to market. And that is to provide our customers with a thorough analysis of their systems, make recommendations in line with their budget and their goals, and allow our customers to make an educated decision versus just selling boxes. So none of our technicians are paid commission. They are all paid by the hour for their knowledge and skill in the HVAC industry. And we really just want to be able to take great care of our customers and provide that white glove service. And we're very thankful through COVID over the last 8 months that we are considered an essential service to help keep homes and businesses cool. And we've been able to do that and keep all of our people employed, as well as actually hired 60 people over the last months. So we love being part of Southwest Florida and supporting the Above Board Chamber and all the wonderful people that are part of the chamber and all the good things we can all achieve for the community. And great work, Cecilia. That's awesome.
Thank you, Tim. And I have to say, I'm one of your customers as well. And you keep me cool. So I appreciate that. I needed an air conditioner a little over a year ago, and they were there on time and everything was fine. It was just perfect working with your company. And I do love the fact that people don't get commission, because a lot of people don't realize when you hire different businesses, a lot of times that person is on commission. They're getting a very low skill pay. And in order for them to pay their bills and stuff, sometimes they have to push things a little bit more. And with Conditionaire, we're not getting that. So I appreciate the ethics and the things that you and Theo Etzel do to make a difference in our community with keeping us all cool. So thank you, Tim, and thank you for being an annual sponsor and all you do for the Above Board Chamber.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure.
The next is my friend Steve. Steve is the CBI of Edison Business Advisors. Steve, tell us a little bit about your business, and thank you for being a sponsor. You've been a sponsor for a while as well. So I'm so glad we got you on our Zoom program so people can learn a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you very much. And unlike Tim, we are fully commissioned. We at Edison Business Advisor, we are a business brokerage, full service business brokerage firm, meaning that we help connect sellers and buyers. So those that are looking to retire or to transition to another career or whatever, we help sell businesses. We help to value them, do the exit planning. And then we also engage with buyers who are looking either for a career change or to expand their current businesses. So we dig into the financials. Our team is fairly highly credentialed with the MBAs and the certified business intermediary and certified M&A professionals, et cetera. We have a appraiser and an evaluation expert on the team as well. So we're helping connect people. We serve as the mediator between, or intermediator between buyers and sellers. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you, and thank you for being a sponsor to our program today. We absolutely appreciate you and what you do. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell everybody a little bit. I'm going to introduce each one of you, our panelists. I'm just going to introduce you by your first name, and I want you all to tell us a little about each one of you, about yourself. And then when we finish that part, we're going to start our questions. So Gary, where's Gary? There's Gary. Gary, tell us, your name is all over Southwest Florida as well. Tell us a little bit about your company. And I like your office in the background, by the way.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on your panel. My name again is Gary Tasman. I'm the CEO and principal broker for Cushman & Wakefield Commercial Property, Southwest Florida. We're a full service commercial real estate brokerage. We handle all aspects of commercial real estate as it relates to, all the food groups, industrial, office, retail. We handle many, many thousands of square feet of leasing and sales a year. We also have a very deep land development practice where we advise with financial feasibility on land acquisition and development. And then we're also the largest third-party commercial property managers in Southwest Florida. We manage over 5 million square feet of commercial properties in Southwest Florida. And I'm very proud to say, and it's not me, it's our community of entrepreneurs and small businesses. During the entire COVID pandemic, our company has managed to collect more than 98% of the rents due. That's over $2 million a month in rent from over 900 tenants. So that's kudos to our business community who stepped up and continued to fight the fight during this pandemic.
Well, we appreciate you and we're excited to have you on our panel today. George, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. It's a pleasure to be here with you all and a privilege. Like Gary and I know each other a long time. We are Welsh companies, started in 1996. We're a commercial real estate company, primarily focused on commercial property management, office building, shopping centers. We also do leasing, development. We have construction divisions, and we work primarily for Naples-based clients, basically wealthy family clients. And in those, in that fiduciary role, which is what we have particularly, we have a lot of tenants that buy and sell their businesses, and because of that, we're involved quite often as the landlord's representative when these transactions take place. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're used to do the due diligence for a particular buyer. Sometimes we're used as a seller for references. So it's a very interesting time, Jeannie, and I think with the election now past us and what we are looking at in the market for 21, it is very interesting and a very opportunistic time to be having this discussion.
Yeah.
I will send it back to you.
Thank you very much. And Jim, you're next. You're a member of the Above Board Chamber for a bit, and tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, thanks, Ginny. Appreciate it. Truforte Business Group has been around for about 30 years. We have offices in Sarasota, Fort Lauderdale, and our main office here in Fort Myers. A good range of brokers are in the firm. Without going into a lot of background detail, one of the benefits is we have some bilingual brokers, which makes it beneficial in this particular area. Myself, I've actually got a financial background. Prior to doing business brokerage, I had a consulting firm. We did mergers and acquisitions, business valuations. And so that's given me a really good background for being a business broker. In addition to that, I've been a small business owner too, bought and sold my own, started a couple. So I think it gives me a particular affinity for helping individuals get these transactions done. So thanks, Jeannie.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate your membership. Steve, one of our sponsors here, we're going to start with you. Your questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. What type of businesses are being sold right now?
Oh, well, it's quite there's right now, just to give a point of reference, and Jim and I are both members of the Business Brokers of Florida. So within the Business Brokers of Florida, we have basically the multiple listing type of system. So we can look and see how many businesses are available for sale. And I was just looking at between Lee and Collier, there are, I think it was as of yesterday, there were 216 businesses listed for sale. And a plethora of those businesses are restaurants, which is, I would say any business can sell if it's priced right. But and Jim's chuckling now because restaurants, oh boy, yeah, they've taken quite a hit. So businesses that are attractive and we're getting a lot of calls are manufacturing, the construction support type industries, distribution businesses. Some of these businesses have been, actually enhanced because of COVID. So it's been a sort of a have and have nots, a dichotomy. The businesses have been run out of business and others have been flourishing. So right now I have a couple businesses under contract that are more in the manufacturing space, which is attractive. So yeah, I'd say, I say the flippant answer would be, well, any business is good to sell if it's priced right. But the reality is restaurants and the retail space is having a rough time right now.
Thank you for your answer, and it is a tough time for them. So, Gary, are you ready for your question?
Absolutely.
Is now a good time to buy a business or investment property in Southwest Florida, and why?
Yeah. Right now is an excellent time to buy a business. It's also a good time to sell a business. Valuations are high right now, a lot because of the capital and the liquidity in the market and the low interest rate environment we're in. But it's also a very good time to buy a business in Southwest Florida. We're uniquely positioned nationally to attract growth. We have phenomenal job creation. We have phenomenal population growth, as everybody's aware. And because of that, the service businesses, the manufacturing businesses, and business to business businesses are all doing very, very well. So I think that beneath all is the real estate, and many times the real estate is the catalyst. It also can become the encumbrance to buying and selling a business. And so I would encourage tenants to think about buying their properties right now, buying properties for their businesses, because there's opportunity with SBA 501 program. There's opportunities there. You can lock in such low interest rates for long periods of time that, yes, the valuation of the business may be higher, but the opportunity going forward and the growth that it provides for in a rapidly growing environment like ours, it more than offsets that. So I would say now is a great time to buy a business.
Very, very good. And a lot of people know that, people are just so afraid right now to move one way or the other. And when we get good answers from people like you, good advice, it helps them to go further.
Uncertainty creates fear,
Yeah.
but it also creates opportunity. And
Yeah.
Really what we're seeing in the market is, and we're blessed. I mean, with the problems that nationwide that I talk to my peers around the country that they're having with excess supplies of office space and excess supplies of retail space and businesses that just can't make it. I mean, yes, we're having challenges here. We are blessed, though, that we're having great population growth, a very, very strong construction and real estate and finance segment of our economy is just doing phenomenal. And that has a ripple effect all the way through the economy that really, really has helped us really buck the national trends.
Perfect. George, you ready?
Sure.
What is the importance of evaluating the demographic profiles?
That's a core question for a potential buyer, to really understand who and what is their market. Really do the homework of who are you trying to reach, and understand the demographics of the marketplace that you're coming into. And does that client or that customer who you're trying to reach, is that demographic here? Over the years, we've seen some attempts, and everybody thinks they can run a restaurant and make $1 million. But the theme of that restaurant, where are you going with it? What do you think you're doing? You really have to understand the neighborhood, the bigger market, and the seasonality that our market still has. So you have to understand the mobility and the demographic of the age group that you're trying to serve. And you have to start with that in order to be, and it's only one part of the puzzle. You have to be in tune to that to be successful.
Interesting. Who are we on? Jim, are you ready? Let's see. Is there a market demand for small business acquisition?
A fantastic demand right now, actually. In fact, I'd like to build on comments that Steve and George and Gary have made. They're excellent comments. But when it comes to market demand, there has been let me check here my notes, about 40% increase in transactions from the second quarter of 2020 to the third quarter of 2020. And I tend to think that we're going to see even more increase in transactions in the fourth quarter. And I've noticed some very interesting occurrences that I think add to that. I'm personally getting more inquiries from individuals out of state that are wanting to buy a business in Southwest Florida. Working right now with somebody from Chicago, somebody from the Carolinas, had an inquiry from Texas, and they're looking for businesses down here to buy. More importantly, though, I find this fascinating. Had an inquiry from an individual in Northern Florida wanting to expand his business into Southwest Florida. And he said, Jim, I got $1 million that I want to put as a passive investor in a business-to-business organization. And that goes back to some previous comments that were made. Certain businesses are doing very well, others aren't. B2B is very good. Some of the clients that I have actually increased their revenues during the COVID rather than decreased. And so we're seeing, again, potentially better business valuations, but how long are those going to last? Buyers have short memories. And so maybe somebody's done well during COVID and that should drive up their business valuation, but is that going to really last for a long period of time? But yes, the market demand is definitely there.
Wow, very good. Thank you very much. I just want to remind our attendees down on the bottom, it's a Q&A. If you take your little cursor and go down there, if you have any questions, please put your questions down there and we will try to get to as many as possible because we want to make sure we're getting the right answers for you as you listen to our program. Steve, I think we just answered one we just had. Let's see another one. How is a buyer able to finance the purchase of a business? How are they doing that right now? What is the best way?
So a lot of the ones I've been involved with, and Gary mentioned it, the SBA facility, the SBA loan, the SBA, Small Business Administration, is something we're all paying for. It's part of the government. So our taxes are funding this free service. And so the SBA, what happens with the SBA loans? There's the 7A or the 504, but basically they are allowing a buyer to put down as low as 10% on a purchase of a business. So the SBA does not actually provide the loan. A bank provides the loan. The SBA, call it a backstop. The SBA basically guarantees a major percentage of that loan, 80 or 90% depending. So the SBA funding is a great vehicle. Right now with, Jim can probably, vouch for it, but you got to do some creative financing now, especially for businesses that may not be as attractive as they were before COVID, meaning that there may be seller financing involved. So what that means is that if I'm selling a business, I'm going to hold a note from the buyer. It keeps me, engaged or on the hook a little bit, but to get the value you want for a business, you have to be a little more creative. So, obviously cash, SBA, getting a traditional loan on a business with a lot of goodwill or lack of assets is a tough one. So those are some of the primary vehicles.
It's good. That's good to know. Thank you for that answer. Gary.
Hey, Jeannie?
Yes.
May I chime in on what Steve
Absolutely.
just? Okay. In addition to what Steve mentioned, there's a program out there that I think is not widely recognized. And it's called the Main Street. It's a Main Street Lending Program or Main Street Loan Program. I forget which, but it's actually a program where the Fed buys the loans from the bank. And it's a lower interest rate, better terms, et cetera. I don't know all the details right now. I can't remember all the details, but it's not for everybody. It's for basically expansion of business. But if you have an existing business and you want to expand through acquisition, you can use this program. So people should look at that as an opportunity too, a good financing vehicle.
Yeah, good point. Yep.
Absolutely. That is good information to know. If you could send that to me after the program, when I send this out, I will add that to it.
For a small fee.
Yeah, for a small fee. I will, I'll get, it's in the mail.
Checks in the mail.
Okay, Gary, what do I look for in a business or investment property? What do we look for?
Well, I think George kind of alluded to it first.
Mhm.
First, you want to understand the market that you're going to be participating in. And once at the more macro level, once you understand your market, who is your customer, who is the group or demographic profile, what is the demographic profile of your target customer? What we do is we kind of list out, we give them almost just this name. So we might say Bob. Bob is got experience as an owner operator of restaurants. He comes from the Northeast. He's coming down here to enjoy our lifestyle, but still wants a business. Then we may have Sally. Sally's been in another type of business. And so we describe these people in names, and then we list out what that customer's desire would be. From there, I think that you look at the business and you say, okay, is that the market I want to be in? Is that where I can add value? So you're always looking for an opportunity to see where you can improve on the operation of the business through infusion of additional capital. Maybe it's human capital, maybe it's financial capital, maybe it's technology, but you're looking for a way to add scale to make the business worth more, or the real estate worth more in the future than it is now. The idea that somebody's going to buy a business or real estate below market in a current environment doesn't happen. So what you have to do is think about, okay, if I bought that pizza shop, how can I grow that revenue from $1 million to $3 million? And if you have the strategy when you go in to scale and to grow, then the business will be successful for you.
Excellent, excellent. George, what does business, keep hearing noise, somebody beeping here. Does business require new lease or facility ownership? What is the existing term?
Well, what's significant there, and I'd like to hear from Jim and Steve, as a landlord's agent where I'm often at, I'm stunned when quite often, and Gary's had this happen too, hey, I just bought this business. Well, that's nice. I have a lease with somebody else. It is amazing to us, that isn't considered when these folks are looking to buy a business.
Yeah.
Do they need to own? What is the term left on the lease? What are you paying for? And I'm being absurd here. You're paying for a business and the lease is going to run out in 30 days? It sounds stupid, but I cannot tell you how many times we get approached, not by folks that are represented by the professionals like on this panel, but have they understood the lease term that they have and the length of time that it's going to take to return the capital that they're putting in? Do they need to own a building in order to expand and grow? That has to get put into the mix. And again, it sounds silly. I have seen it over and over where that is not considered. And it's fundamental to us, but I would encourage anybody out there to be considering buying the business, understand the demographic, but then understand the underpinning of the real estate and how you're going to get that return. I would welcome, I would welcome any other comment because it stuns me when people walk in and we look like we're the enemy. like we're trying to block them from this purchase.
George, I mean, you hit the nail on the head on that. I can't tell you how many times we hear after the fact as landlord reps and owner reps that, the rent's being paid by somebody else. Or, you've got a lease with Bob and he's got a personal guarantee. And all of a sudden, someone else has come in and said, no, Bob, I bought that business from Bob last week or last year.
Wow.
And what happens is there's provisions in the leases that require it to be assigned. And it's really bad for both parties. The seller of that business is on a personal guarantee that he's obligated to forever. And he's in default on his lease because he didn't go through the process of an assignment of that lease. The buyer of the business doesn't realize it, but he's completely at the mercy of the tenant, the real tenant, the previous owner, as to whether he can even continue to operate his business there. And the landlord calls a default on that. And then the business is out of business. The buyer lost his money and the seller of that business is still obligated to the lease terms.
Right.
It's terrible. And it's something that we all want to make sure up front that it's addressed. It just eliminates problems.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting it addressed up front, because the seller will say, oh, no, I got a good relationship with my landlord, no problem,
Yeah.
And then, but there's some escalators built in there and oh, yeah, it's, well, and the other thing, just for when we talk about SBA is that the SBA is a 10-year, well, the 7A loan is a 10-year loan. They require to have a 10-year runway, meaning, we need a 10-year lease commitment to make sure the business stays in existence. But yeah, getting the lease, I agree with you guys. That's critically important, not to delay talking about that.
You guys are like doctors. You got to find out all the illnesses that are going on all over the place. And yeah.
There's one additional point. I mean, these are all good comments, and I think you've demonstrated the complexity of looking at some of these. And this is a minor point relative to the big points you brought up. But for someone who's buying a business, if they're going to put in leasehold improvements, they get a tax benefit quicker if it's on a lease rather than if it's on real estate they've purchased. And then if you're purchasing real estate, what's the downstream potential for the increase in market value of that real estate you're buying too? So again, in addition to all the points you brought up, there's some technical tax issues that should be considered in all that too.
Wow.
Jim, I would just add one point to that. When an owner user buys real estate or an investor, they can segregate the improvements and accelerate the depreciation of those improvements faster than the real estate. So you are exactly correct that you can get your tax write-off faster by making a leasehold improvement to your lease space. But there are a lot of exceptions in a cost seg analysis that can accelerate quite a bit of those components.
All complicated stuff.
Wow. I have higher respect for the 4 years at this webinar right now, because you really have a tough job. It isn't just selling something and it's over. There's a lot of different parts to this, and kudos to each one of you. Jim, your next question is what does the market demand mean to sellers?
Well, there's never a right answer to that question, but I think in general, because the market demand's up, and especially with businesses that have done well under COVID, you should be able to get a bit of a premium on selling your business. The question becomes really how much and how good, what's the background of the buyer? One of the things that bothers me to some extent is that the benefit to a buyer is the future economic benefit to be derived from that business. So that should help the seller drive up the price. Whether or not the seller's gonna be able to get advantage of that becomes a question, because I'm not sure the buyer really understands that, if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
We have some questions from our audience, basically. Somebody wrote a whole bunch of questions. We can't get to them all, but when we do send out this video when it's over, you will have the information for each of our wonderful business brokers, but let's run at one of them. This is somebody that's looking to buy something. What small business has a lower learning curve for someone without experience in that field? What would you recommend them to buy? They have some money, guys. What should they do?
Can I respond?
You can. Anybody can.
Okay. So I'm going to make two comments.
Mhm.
One, if you're going to a bank for financing, one of the 4, 5, 6 most critical things that a bank looks at is your experience in that particular industry, in that particular business. If you don't have any, it's going to be more difficult for you to get a loan, or at least a favorable terms on a loan.
Mhm.
So always be aware of that. On the flip side of that coin, I'm going to use a personal experience, a little bit of background. I sort of got burned out in consulting, had a nationwide practice. I was on the road. My wife computed one time I was on the road for 250 days of the year. And so I got burnt out. And so one day I said to my wife, I'm done. We're going to move back home and we'll figure out what to do when we get there. We ended up buying a small retail business, which I had no background in whatsoever. Keep in mind that even part of the time we owned this business, we were actually absentee owners. But between my wife's background in operations and HR and my background on the financial side and sort of marketing consulting services, we were actually able to get a good loan. Well, of course, we had, a financial wherewithal to get a good loan too, but we got a good loan and we doubled the size of the business in less than 3 years. But it was a small retail business, not a big learning curve if you have the right sort of background and skills to pick those up. So I think that is one. The other, on the flip side of that though, is you don't want to buy a technical business, a machine shop if you're not an engineer. You don't want to buy a restaurant if you don't have an in-depth background in the hospitality industry. So it's tough to answer the question specifically, but I give you some examples.
Yeah, I think the other thing I run into is, are you looking to buy a business or buy a job? And actually that works on both sides, because invariably I meet with people and it's really hard to tell a business owner that their baby's ugly. But for example, hey, I've been in the business for 25 years. I'm doing a great job. And it's like, yeah, I understand, Jim's Plumbing, that it's you, but what are you selling? If Jim's not here, we don't have Jim's Plumbing anymore. So we run into, and Jim, I'm sure you run into, there's businesses, and we always use this. You say, hey, if you have a business, you go away for 2 weeks and the cash register is still ringing, you got a business. If you go away and you're not making any money, then you're buying a job. So the point of that, if you're looking to buy a job, which is not a bad thing to do either, there's pool service routes, there's pressure washers, there's handyman businesses. There's a lot of small business, quote unquote small businesses. And then with the transition with the owner, if they're retiring, you can always negotiate, hey, I need 3 weeks of your time or a month of your time or whatever. But yeah, I agree. You don't want to be getting into something you have no experience in.
To the contrary on that, though, I will say that the fundamental principles of owning a business do transcend from industry to industry and service line to service line. So I think that generally the people that end up buying jobs are not necessarily the ones that are familiar with owning an entrepreneurial business or being an entrepreneur to own a business and the basic principles and fundamentals of business ownership. But I think you're exactly right. We see, and on the landlord side, and I think George would agree with this, is landlords always get nervous when the guy that used to own a route sales operation comes in and buys a restaurant, because there's a lot to it. The key to the business is the people that stay with the business.
Sure, Gary, for sure. I'd add both almost when I hear that question, what's the easiest, that makes me cringe a little, because there's nothing easy about running a business. You have to come with a work ethic. You don't come to South Florida and go on the beach. I know I'm gonna sound like an old guy, but you do not come here and think it's easy. You have to come with work ethic and put 100% into something, hopefully, that you love doing. Look at, and the experience level that you have. You're kidding yourself if you think you're gonna come to this market and run a manufacturing business when you've done something totally different in another part of the world. It's impossible to do. I'm not knocking anybody, but I evaluate this on a daily basis with potential, users coming to our space. Work ethic first, you'll learn it. If you love it, you'll get at it. If you don't have those things, go get a job.
Great
me-
advice.
Cheaper in the long run.
Let me add something to what George just said, and actually prove that his comments are not personal opinion. There's been a number of studies done, both in the US and in Europe, that shows that an entrepreneur will spend on average 60 to 80 hours per week to run their business. And there's actually studies that prove that. So if everybody believe what George just said, if you're not willing to do it, don't be a business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Nobody's gonna love it like you do, right? It's like that baby.
I like the idea of absentee owner. And Jim, well, all of you guys are fielding calls from people in the north. I want to buy a business in Florida, and an absentee owner. Like, good luck with that, They don't run themselves.
I have another question here from somebody that was unable to join us, but they'll be listening to the tape later. I don't know who's going to answer this. I know Jim can, but I don't know if the rest of you can. Is there a tax advantage to closing your business because of COVID-19 impact? I've not heard of anything.
No, I haven't heard of anything that's
Yeah.
no tax advantage. I mean,
There's a lot more incentive in the marketplace from the government and the Federal Reserve. There's a lot more incentive to keep your businesses open and keep
Yeah.
your employees employed.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, if you've had an idle or a PPP loan, it could actually be a big negative to shut down.
Their other question was, if you withdraw funds from your retirement deferred annuity to help your business, will the penalty be waived?
There's programs. There's a Rob's program. There are programs that allow for people to roll over their retirement into purchasing a business. Set up a corporation to purchase a business. As far as just pulling it out to help fund your business,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
COVID has, the government has created programs around around the penalties for pulling out money from your retirement fund early. I don't know exactly what they are. I would encourage people to talk to their CPAs.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some waiving of those penalties for pulling money out of your retirement right now because of COVID.
Yeah, we've had programs with CPAs on that they probably would have been able to help a whole lot more. But there's so much the government is putting in right now, money. So I don't understand. I don't think that could happen. But then I'm not an expert on it. Steve, we're back to you. Should business owners wait to sell, or should they sell now?
Well,
Thanks, Steve.
it's like investing in the stock market. I think, when you time it right, the businesses that are doing well, it's a great time to sell now. And like Jim mentioned, we have a bunch of buyers out there. Because if you think about where you put your money today, the stock market's not getting it done. You're not getting any interest rates. So people are looking for other alternatives, and there are a lot of buyers out there. There's private equity firms, there's family offices, individuals. So yes, I think the time to sell is price it right and sell it now, because we don't know what the future holds. Of course, it can go up, but it can go the other way too.
Okay, our next question is for Gary. Why real estate and not the stock market? We'll just continue on that. What's
Yeah,
your opinion
so-
on that?
So my thought around that is, a business owner, whether it's a buyer of a new business or somebody that owns a business now, has options, and they have to look at their business needs. If you can accurately project your real estate space needs over time, as an owner occupant, acquiring your real estate instead of renting makes a lot of sense right now. And typically what happens is stock market profits get taken off the table and put in real estate. So if you can have some kind of gain in your portfolio, your stock portfolio right now, and roll it into an owner occupied real estate investment for your business, it's one of the lowest risk, highest return things you can do, because number one, your company that you own and control is your tenant. And when you're in that situation, it gives you complete control. You have to be able to accurately project the needs of your business over a certain period of time, which separates those businesses that should own real estate versus those that should not. But most small businesses in Southwest Florida aspire to own the real estate they're in as a way to more accurately predict and control their occupancy costs. And so I would suggest that any business that's giving consideration to being a tenant versus an owner, their occupancy cost today is going to be lower, and with the right financing structure will be locked in long term.
Yeah.
So I'm a proponent of taking profits out of the stock market and putting them into real estate. You also create another value opportunity or wealth creator when you have a business and you own the real estate. What happens is you build the business, it comes time to sell the business, you sell the business and you sign a long-term lease back with the new buyer of the real estate. So you have a passive income stream in addition to the proceeds from the sale of the business. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into it, and everybody's situation is different. I'm not suggesting for a second that every single business owner should own their real estate, but there's many, many situations where you've had appreciation in your stock portfolio, and you have a business that needs a place to operate, that it makes a lot of sense to give that consideration.
You have more control too.
Control of your costs, control of your destiny. There's a lot, but keep in
Yeah.
mind, you're letting your real estate be its own business while your business is its own business.
Yeah.
And so both can add and kind of multiply your potential wealth creator.
Good advice. Thank you very much for that. George, what's the importance of establishing a banking relationship? I would think that would be top.
I think we've all touched on that a bit. Again, if you're gonna come to this market, and depending on what your experience has been in the past, part of that experience is also your banking relationship and bringing that with you. We're seeing some huge changes in how banks versus credit unions versus private lending can facilitate different types of business financing. So you've got to try to understand what is your banking relationship and what can they do. I found it fascinating just in the last few years of how the credit unions are able to really maneuver very agilely around our banking institutions. At the same time, banks are gobbling each other up, and you really have to know what are you bringing to the table in order to maximize the plan that you're going to put in place, as we've all talked about, buying the business, buying the real estate, financing improvements. You've got to have that as part of your overall plan as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, are there any differences in the profiles of potential buyers? Tell us about that.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit
Yeah.
about that. The different profiles, again, I have a guy who wants to invest $1 million as a passive investor. It's not exactly a buyer, but similar. We've talked about people who want to move down from the north. The question really becomes, as a seller, do you feel comfortable with that buyer because you don't want to have the deal go south in the end? Do they have adequate resources? Do they have background in your business? Are they going to be able to get the financing? So you'd have to be sensitive as a seller to the various types of profiles that buyers have.
Interesting. Question that I have, and you all can answer it. How do you pick the right business broker? How do you find it? How do they find you?
Well, I can just give you my number.
No, no. How do I have a couple $1 million. Who am I going to use, and who do I know that's going to be there for my best interests?
My response would be, it gets very personal. We talked about, the finances and all that stuff is, of the technical stuff, but it's got to be a level of connection and trust. And, I would talk to a few different brokers, and talk to them and if they share some common interest and trust, and because you're going to be working pretty closely and pretty intimately. So I would talk to a few, and then obviously, looking at experience, credentials, recommendations, so I'll pass that one over to Jim.
Steve, you're exactly right. I think really what it comes down to is chemistry between the client and the broker. You can look at references, which is good. You shouldn't discount that, but it's really just chemistry. I've had more than one client that had tried to sell their business in the past, or they've talked to other brokers, whatever, and they just told me that they felt comfortable with me, which is why they went with me. It wasn't because I'm a retired CPA, or because I have an MBA, or because I've done M&A work in the past, or I know how to do valuations. It's all nice, but in fact, actually, back in my consulting, just one last little tidbit, back in my consulting career, I had a very large regional client. And I talked to the CEO one day. I said, "Why is it that you work with me?" I said, "The credentials I had when I was in consulting, I had tons of credentials behind my name. I had to get 2 business cards. I had so many initials, right?" And she said, "It's because we trust you and we're comfortable with you. The credentials didn't mean a thing." Mm-hmm. So I think that just goes to emphasize what Steve just said. It's really chemistry and personality, and whether or not you click.
Jim, you can vouch for this too, but I look at all the different quote unquote leads I get. I think 99% of them are referrals from somebody that I know or worked with, or, it's all personal relationship,
If I can, that's a very unique thing in Southwest Florida, what we're talking about. And I think, Jeannie, above board, what you've created, for example, all of the guests on your panel, their reputations are stellar. Mm-hmm. So going to your CPAs, going into the market and asking who would be good, people here know each other. Yes. They're generally, people here take care of each other. Mm-hmm. And generally, if you're trusted, that comes up. And if you ask the right ethical questions about the lease and where are you going, that people know that pretty quick. And then what is that chemistry between you and that broker for you to feel confident that he's answering those questions for you? It really comes down to that.
Yeah. Jeannie, I would only add that selecting a business broker or a real estate broker to handle a transaction for you, whether you're a buyer or a seller or a tenant or a landlord, it's not much different than selecting a doctor. Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to have somebody that has capability. So they have resources behind them. I mean, they have the facilities that they need. They have the data that they need to help make logical and supportable, build logical and supportable strategies. They have a track record of honesty and integrity where they're referred to you by somebody else. And so I really think that it comes down to the buyer doing their homework, getting comfortable, like everyone said, and then checking references.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many parts of that, but when people are just coming into town, because I'm hearing a lot of people in the New York and the New Jersey area, they're selling their houses, they want to buy businesses down here, and they have to find the right ones, or they're just throwing money in a hole. And it's important that the person that they pick to be their business broker has expertise in that area, because some people could be, correct me if I'm wrong, some businesses brokers could be used to doing smaller businesses, and then we have some that are doing the high end. So you really need to know which one is going to handle your potential business, because there may be many parts of it, and some a person might not know how to do that. You know, correct?
Yes, that's very good.
Yeah. So
There's also industry specific expertise. So in a lot of businesses, there's businesses that are business brokers and real estate brokers that are really only know one or two very specific industries, like hospitality, like self-storage, like restaurant, you know, things like that. So I think that there's a combination, and it's really about the connectivity and the resources and the thought leadership that broker can bring to that buyer's specific situation.
Exactly. We have a bunch of different questions, so I'm trying to go through them and see. Some have been asked already. One of them actually is yours, Gary. And I think it's a interesting one. Should I pay cash or finance? And I want you to answer that, and maybe other people can add to that, because I think that's something that people need to know. Because you're in charge. You're driving the train for wherever the destination that person wants to go. So you need to know what to do with that money.
Right. Well, I think it comes down to seller benefit and the predictability of the income stream.
Yeah.
The more predictable the income stream, the more logical it is to finance it.
Okay.
In terms of right now, I mean, there's very, very attractive debt available in the market. The interest rates are at record lows. Lenders are being encouraged by the Fed to put money out to help soften the blows of COVID. There's a lot of reasons to borrow money, but understand the purpose for borrowing money is what's called positive leverage, which means I can use that money to make more money. If I'm borrowing money to pay for something that I can't make any more money off of than I could by paying cash, it makes no sense to borrow that money, because you've got an interest rate and an obligation associated with it. So I look at debt, and the only reason in any environment, the reason to use debt is to leverage and to have positive leverage. So when you look at, I won't go into it real deep, but a cash on cash return, if I can make a higher return by borrowing money than I can by paying cash, that's positive leverage, and then you should borrow money.
Anybody else want to touch that?
Those are all fantastic comments. I'd add a little bit to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put this in sort of real life terms for a second. Let's say you borrow money and you go to the bank, and they're going to say the rate's an effective rate after fees, or say 6 or 7%. Keep in mind that they have very little risk, because they have all your assets liened. They have your personal guarantee. In Florida, they can't take your house, but okay, everything else. So let's say they're doing 7% and they have virtually no risk. There is risk in your business. I don't care what it is. Therefore, how much do you have to earn over and above 7% on the bottom line in order to have a reasonable return? All right, now that's part of the question. The second part is, and I'm rusty on this statistic, you can look it up, but over an extended period of time, 30 years or whatever, the stock market has returned about 10% on investments, okay? So if you can make 10% and have your money in the stock market, now you have to have 7% you're giving the bank. You got to make 10%. Don't you have to have 17% on the bottom line? Mm-hmm. I'm oversimplifying, but it's a concept you have to think about. because it goes back to the whole positive leverage issue. So that's not a specific answer, but it's a concept you need to be thinking about.
Anybody else? Okay, Steve, do you prefer your clients to go look for something on their own first so they can know what is for sale in the community? Or do you like to get them called and bring them out and show them their opportunities? And if people do it on their own, how do they look? Is there an area that they can look at by themselves?
Yeah, so, well, yes, there's a lot of tools out there for people to go search for businesses for sale. There's, obviously the Business Brokers of Florida, our listing service, but then there's a lot of commercial services, BizBuySell, BizQuest, businessesforsale.com, businessbroker.net, Axial, Deal Street. There's a bunch of different businesses. So, but what I would do is I would talk to a broker just to get understanding of the approach. If you haven't bought a business before, to kind of understand what's the approach, how do they get financed, what should they be looking for? So yes, I mean, selfishly, I'd say, talk to a broker. But short of that, I would say, go look at the SBA website, understand the funding for SBA. There's a lot of tools out there as far as starting your own business. Evaluate, do I do a franchise or do I buy an existing business? But yeah, I would think starting with a business broker just to get grounded on what's available, what's out there. Like for example, right now, somebody says, "Hey, what business are available?" Well, they're going from 30,000 to 7.9 million in our area. So it's a pretty wide swipe of type of businesses. But yeah, so I would start with a broker just to kind of get level-headed, and then there's a bunch of tools we can direct people to search.
Perfect. George, you have a question. I'm not real sure about the end of it, if it's NOI or NOL. What is the due diligence process in establishing which one? I don't know.
All right, Jeannie, NOI is net operating income.
Okay, that's what I thought.
All the members of your panel, I'm sure they'll jump in. One of the biggest benefits of using a broker like Steve is he's going to be able to look at a balance sheet and an income and expense and begin to do a due diligence process to really understand what the net operating income is, what that business is throwing off. So generally we're paying multiples of that number. So one of the biggest benefits is really understanding the businesses and paying for what truly, as best as you can, identifying that NOI. And I highly encourage people, and I would refer buyers to any one of the brokers on your panel to use them for that purpose, if nothing else. Because if you're coming to this market new and you think you're going to be able to truly understand what that NOI is without the experience, you could be grossly overpaying for something that is not achievable. And I would think that the rest of your panel would be able to maybe explain that a little better than I did.
There's a concept there called pro forma NOI versus actual NOI. And pro forma is blue sky, basically. It's, if everything goes the way we want it to, then it could get this much more income. So you really want to be looking at your actual NOI. And just at the basis of any decision you make, it comes down to how predictable is it that income stream can stay in place and or grow. And so it's the predictability of the income stream.
And I would turn the question around. Before a buyer using a broker, I think a seller should use a broker so that they are successful in the sale of their business. So what they're presenting is not pie in the sky, it's actual NOI that's achievable. Some of this stuff that we get to see, a pro forma NOI on business that they haven't even really got yet, but they're going to try to sell on a multiple. Wow, talk about a quick way to turn a buyer off. And so I would recommend that seller uses a broker almost more than the buyer to have a successful transaction.
Well, you're exactly right, George. I mean, it's so important because there's liability after the sale and representation, and sellers may be completely innocent in the thought process, and somebody may come along that says, oh, okay, that sounds good, and do it, and then find out you're tied up in court. Nobody wins because
Yeah, I see that. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So what Jim and I do is we go through and dissect their financials and help them truly understand. You know, there's a bunch of terms for it: NOI, solar discretionary earnings, owner benefit. You know, so for example, let's just say the owner happens to own the building and he's charging a minimal rent. You know, we have to factor in and make these a market reality as far as, you know, adjusting. We take out the depreciation. There's a lot of adjustments that are made to truly understand what the owner benefit's going to be. So yeah, the accountant's work is to minimize the net income for tax purposes. Our job is to I think, normalize or rationalize what true cash flow for the owner or potential buyer would be.
The one I see in businesses a lot is the president or CEO's salary.
Yeah.
So when you buy that business, one of the categories is that owner's salary. The truth of the matter is you have to look at that business as an owner, that's an expense that you're going to have to cover. So you're going to have in there the cost of a CEO, or, you know, however you're going to exit that owner out of it. You know, there's a cost there, and there's a difference between profit of the business and owner's salary.
Yes.
Or president's salary.
Question that I've got to ask: so both parties should have their own broker, correct? Or can one broker do the whole thing with the buyer and the seller? Is there a proper way to do this, or is it dangerous having one person doing it? What's your opinion?
Well, Jim, I'll let you jump in and say it, but in Florida, Jim and I, we're actually licensed real estate agents, and we're regulated by the Department of Business Professional Regulations as real estate. We're licensed, so we act as transaction brokers. So we don't quote unquote represent. We represent the transaction or the deal. So selfishly, Jim and I would love to have both the buyer and broker, because, you know, we get both sides of the deal, just like real estate. Yeah. But we cooperate. Florida is the best, as far as my opinion. But Florida is the best as far as co-brokering, because if I have a listing or Jim has a listing, we're both working to sell that listing. You know, so I can say, hey, Jim, I see you have a listing. I have a buyer. Let's get together. So a lot of our deals are co-broked. Personally, if I was buying a business, I'd like to have one person, you know, holding my hand. So Jim, why don't you, what's your thoughts?
No, you're exactly right, Steve. To be a little bit more specific, there is something called a specific agency, a broker, which represents just one party. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of brokers in the state of Florida are transaction brokers. And the way I look at it is that I have an equal responsibility to both parties. Mm-hmm. I need to be honest with both of them. I have to disclose stuff that I know to both of them. I don't like, it's called a transaction broker. I don't like that term because it sounds like we're just trying to serve ourselves to get the deal done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really look at it as I have a responsibility to both, to try to make sure that everybody understands everything, and that, well, there's an old phrase that says, if everybody's happy, it wasn't a good deal. Everybody's got to be a little unhappy to have a good deal. Right. There's that fine line we walk, but we do have legally a responsibility to both. Mm-hmm. As a transaction broker.
And it's the same in real estate, whether it's a business or real estate. And the way I explain it to people is, in a transaction relationship, our job becomes that of a facilitator. So it's our responsibility to treat all parties fair and honest and with total transparency. The difference is when we're a single agent representative, whether it's the buyer or the seller, there's one more component that we owe to that client that you don't owe in a transaction brokerage relationship, and that's the fiduciary responsibility. That means is if I'm your buyer's broker, my fiduciary responsibility to you is to do everything I would do as a transaction broker, but also to help you get the best overall financial terms available or that can be had through the transaction. So I got to watch your money. And the same if I was working for the seller. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to be a hard-nosed negotiator and you end up not getting the deal because we were too focused on making sure that you got so much money for it that the market couldn't support it and the deal falls apart. So it's a very, very strong responsibility to add fiduciary to that relationship, but it's important in some cases. Typically, I would agree with Steve and Jim. In most transactions where you have a willing and able seller and a willing and able and motivated buyer, you should be able to put a transaction together in a facilitation as a facilitator and not really worry about fiduciary from one party or another, because at the end of the day, what makes our group and our level of professionalism different than most, we're most focused on your referral business. We're going to do a great job because we want you to tell everybody we did a great job.
Reputation is everything. George, you wanted to add to that?
That's kind of our motto at the company. And what I would add in its disclosure, and I too have not liked the term transactional broker because it's like all we care about is buying that loaf of bread and get out of here. That's not what we do. You know, I think disclosure and making sure that the transaction is even on both sides is really the responsibility. In my particular situation, I have a fiduciary relationship to owners and landlords, and it's my job right up front to disclose that to whoever it is that either a lessee or a potential buyer or seller of a business. I disclose that and let them know right up front. Now, would I be transparent in all of our, dealings? Of course, but I think maybe the issue might be, does a buyer and seller have separate attorneys? Sometimes that helps offset a concern that somebody would have one side or the other. And I don't want to get off on attorneys because this group will have a whole different bunch of comments that we'll want to talk to ourselves about. But transparency, really helps that issue of comfort level.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And as I mentioned, your reputation is really important. You can make a whole lot of money on one shot and never make another dime for the rest of your career just because something got in the way and you went the wrong way for your client. So those things, and each one of you have excellent reputations, and that's why you're picked to be on this panel. So we are excited about that. Jim, we have a question from you. What is the outlook for small business values, and how does the election impact this?
Well, the second part of that, the election, I think is a good question.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get into politics, but that was in there.
I've been talking to my investment broker about this too. So. But business values, interesting note is that I think it was, let me check my notes here. Third quarter, the median purchase price in the third quarter of businesses went up by 19% compared to the year earlier quarter. Now, that sounds like it's really good for values where we are right now. But I wonder, is that because the pandemic resistant, the recession resistant businesses are still in the market and being sold well, and the businesses that are weak have not been on the market? So I'm not sure that statistic is one that could be really relied upon. I think that from a business valuation perspective, again, if you're pandemic resistant, the value should go up. But I know in talking to a couple of bankers, I'm not sure that the bankers are looking at this properly. They're still worried about what the COVID had done to businesses. I think they're a little afraid because of the restaurants. there's some, and Gary and George may know more about this, but I've read some stuff about, there might be some difficulties with the real estate market because of COVID. Don't know the answer to that. That's not my area. But so I think business valuations in general, if you're pandemic resistant, they should go up. I think buyers are going to be, at least for a short period of time, willing to pay those prices. But long-term, I think it remains to be seen. And especially, again, I've had a couple potential clients that they were waiting until after the election to decide if they were going to put their business on the market or not. So I think there's just a lot of unknowns out there still because of the election and because of COVID.
I got a client that called right after the election, and they want to sell their real estate. They have a retail nursery operation, you know, plants and that kind of stuff. And right after the election, they called. They have to put it on the market because the minimum wage went up, and they're concerned that that little margin was the difference between red and black for them. So I think it's every different kind of business and every different scenario. So.
George, did you want to add to that?
No, I think that was very well described. There are a lot of influence on what happens. And I think one of the biggest one is the rise in the minimum wage. Yeah. I really think that is going to be huge. You take a look at the lawn services in this community and where that all comes from. You take a look at the restaurant workers. You take a look at labor in particular. That's a big, big factor that I think still will get sorted out in 2021.
Well, you know, one of the big attractions to businesses to come to Florida has always been what we call the sun tax, right? It's the lower wages that we have here versus other parts of the country. And if we're going to be mandated by the government now that margin, that sun tax is going to be neutralized, what impact is it going to be on attracting new businesses and high wage businesses to our market? Even though they're above the future minimum wage, they still depend on what's going to happen is everything else is going to go up.
Right.
I think those are excellent comments. And especially when you look at the fact that the vast majority of businesses in the country and in Florida are small businesses, and small changes can make a big difference in a small business. And so I'm a little concerned about the fact that we approved that minimum wage increase.
But you know, you were talking about the other part of that question was the COVID pandemic. Yeah. You know, what we've seen as it relates to the COVID pandemic, and when you're thinking about what businesses to buy, there have been very few new trends established as a result of the pandemic. What we saw was an acceleration of a lot of trends that were already in place. For example, you know, sit-down restaurants, there has been a trend before COVID already that a larger percentage of their business was takeout and delivery. Yeah. And that was Grubhub and Uber Eats and, you know, things like that. That was already starting, and it just accelerated during the pandemic. So I think it creates a good opportunity for a pre-pandemic business model to be acquired and then changed to reflect the post-pandemic model. And that's where the opportunity is. I mean, nobody buys a business to make less money going forward. They all want to make more. That's the purpose of it. Same with real estate. So what you look for is the benefit and the opportunity that the pandemic has created as it relates to accelerating in other trends that were in place. I'll give you one quick example. I heard the CEO of Microsoft speak not too long ago, and they said that we really haven't deployed new technology as a result of the pandemic. We saw a 5-year acceleration in the acceptance of the technology and the adaptation rate of our technology happen in just a few months.
Question for each one of you. Are you finding that some of our vacancies in our buildings for our owners that people are looking to buy them and change them and make them spots where businesses basically could go to have meetings or have their address there and do all these things? And there was a high percentage of people that are working from their home, including me, that are doing that, but they don't want people to know where they live, and they can't have meetings in their homes. So a lot of the business offices are being changed. Do you find that? Are people looking to develop these places for meeting offices and stuff like that?
You know, Cushman and Wakefield did a global study on, coming back to the office and how the changes in the office. In fact, I just wrote an article. I think it just got published recently in the last week or two about how businesses will use real estate now versus before. And I think that the mega trends that we're going to see are, again, acceleration of trends that were already in place. They're the acceleration of the idea that we want healthy places to work.
Exactly.
That we want to be a little less dense. So instead of having, one employee per 150 square feet, we may go up to one employee per 175 or 200, 225 square feet. So we also want a reason to come to the office, because what we realized, or to come to the workplace, what we realized is employees have gotten to be pretty productive in many cases when they have eliminated their commute time, their dry cleaner bills, their oil, their gas bills, and they have also been able to do where you could, especially outside, in our case, property managers and brokers have become tremendously more productive because of being able to have more meetings in a day.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that's going to change, but I think that the workplace of the future generally is going to have a reason that I have to be there. Is it a socialization aspect? Is it a special community and culture that you have there? And is it going to benefit the client in the long run?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the question of 2021, Jeannie. We're immersed in that every day, every hour. We are asking ourselves that. We are in the process of converting buildings to service. Are in the process of building out. We've all done this enough, Gary and I. Executive suites are one of the shakiest kind of, this sunny weather, brings a lot of shady people here. And a lot of times they are not exactly what you want in your buildings. We've all experienced those characters. So we also say that we as a company make better decisions when we all collaborate together and make those decisions. So I think we're trying to figure out, how do we do that? How do we collaborate and move forward? But we are definitely going to be converting buildings to service. There's no question we're doing that.
Well, one thing then is businesses are
all of that now. We're chewing that up and doing that. I'm going to do it here when we're done.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing every day right now.
Do you find that people are going to be investing more in buildings like that, and doing so, could they actually make more money than billing a big business to take a whole floor? Now they can have smaller businesses and have more of them in there. Could it be a better investment?
It's hard to say again in generalizations. We're out of land in county, so we're doing remodels and rehabs and tear downs and build back up. So that's a complicated question, and that does not lend itself to somebody who doesn't have experience at doing that. That takes a team, it takes a sophisticated group of people to do that, from engineers all the way through to architects and people like Gary. But that is very difficult in our market. That may be different. I know it's different going north of here, but
I think that at a bigger level, what you're talking about, Jeannie, is how businesses use real estate. And we've seen examples over time. I mean, think back to the dysfunctional factories up in the Northeast that became loft apartments. Think about how retail enclosed malls have become medical facilities.
right.
So it's just another reaction to that is going to happen to the environment that we're in. So I can see that in bigger cities that we have more office space ultimately than we need. I think we have in many cases more retail space than we need. And we've seen what happened in that scenario. So the offices can get converted to multifamily. I mean, you'll just see that's the beauty of the creativity of the developers and the entrepreneurs that look at a market and create opportunities for different, more exciting and profitable uses. So change of use in real estate is nothing new. And real estate professionals have lived with it and deal with it and really profit from it.
Yeah.
Since the beginning of time.
Our European clients make fun of us. You guys build this stuff here because in 25 years, you're gonna knock it down and do something else versus the real estate that's been in our family in Europe for 500 years. What Gary is talking about is just the unbelievable way, I think, you know, the American ability to adapt and change. I totally believe in that, and it's coming fast.
Last year I was up in the New York, New Jersey area, and it blew my mind. These old buildings that are beautiful condominiums now where people are paying top dollar to live there. And it's like, and they were like garbage looking, you know, right. It was like, it just blew my mind just driving around, especially around Bayonne, New Jersey and stuff like that. It's just a little town and these old buildings, and by the different areas, it just blew my mind. Just seeing things that were nothing are beautiful condos.
Well, and then when you go back to what is the effect of the election, well, they're going to need to get out of our way with the bureaucratic, with the red tape and permitting and all of this, or this stuff won't happen. If we're able to convert, change some of our PUDs, look at some of our zoning in a different way. Yes. As long as we're able to do those things and still be responsible to the community, yeah, it'll happen. But if we have government that just gets in our way all the time, nope.
Exactly. And housing is going to go up. There's more people moving here and they're looking for places to live. So, gentlemen, I think you're going to have a lot of opportunities in the future because the change brings opportunities. And being who each one of you are, I think wonderful things are going to happen. So I see good things happen in the coming years. And with that going on, I just want to thank you all for being part of our program today. Is there any one more thing that any of you want to share before we can start bringing this down a little bit? Anything you didn't say that you want to say? How about this? Steve, tell us again.
We're bullish on 2021 is all I can tell you.
There you go. Steve, tell us your phone number and your website.
My phone number is area code 239-565-3171.
Thank you very much. Gary, please do the same thing.
My phone number is my direct cell, 239-470-9646. And our company website is www.cpswfl.com.
George?
Our Welsh company's phone number is 239-261-4744.
And Jim?
I'm going to take this opportunity to put a little plug also, if I may, first. For those of you who might be interested in buying or selling a business, not quite sure how to go about it, maybe you want to start your own business, you can also go to SCORE, and you can look up their website online, SCORE, Southwest Florida. But as far as my telephone number, 239-220-2017, and our company website, which I always have to look at because I can't remember, is www.Truforte, which is TRUFORTE businessgroup.com, trufortebusinessgroup.com.
Well, I wanted just all to say that so people would get to listen to this video, they would know how to get a hold of you. But I also wanted to thank Javier Fuller. Javier is I call him the Wizard of Oz, and he is phenomenal. And thank him and Commerce PR and Marketing, which helps us put these webinars together for their help. Javier stays in the background and something's going on with the webinar, he's there to fix it. So thank him and thank Connie Ramos Williams for her company and her staff and all that they do for us. Our next I also want to thank our sponsors, Steve. Thank you for being one of our sponsors. We really appreciate your support with the Above Board Chamber, and Tim as well. I don't know if Tim is still online from Conditioned Air. Tim is a great sponsor of the Above Board Chamber. He's actually an annual sponsor as well as Comrec PR and Marketing. Our next program will be on Wednesday, December 9th on Zoom as well. This will be on the Voices of Hope and Reason for 2021, because there will be hope and there will be reason to have a better 2021. And I, for one, am looking forward to it. We have we have all of our executive panel on that, and that information will be going out in a couple of minutes. You can join the Above Board Chamber's website at www.aboveboardchamber.com. And our phone number, if you need to reach me, is 239-910-7426. I want to thank the people that were able to join us today and the people that will be able to listen to the video that couldn't watch us live. I was like overwhelmingly happy with this webinar today. A lot of it was over my head. I knew nothing about, but I think I learned a whole lot. And I know when I listen to it again, I will learn some more from each one of you. What I usually say at the Above Board Chamber meetings each month is that when God brings us into this world, he gives us gifts, but they're not gifts until we give them away. So I would like to thank each one of you for giving away your gifts today, because you gave your knowledge and information that I know our participants that are listening today will be able to use that and hopefully call one or all of you and find out how they too can buy or sell a business in this time. So thank you again. If anybody needs information of the Above Board Chamber, let us know. When this video goes out, each person will be getting the information of each of our participants. Thank you very much. And I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.